Most of us carry questions we never say out loud. Questions about loss, identity, contradictions, and what it means to be human. This podcast is a place to sit with these questions without rushing towards answers. I am Aya Karuni, and this is You and Aya. This episode is sponsored by Carbon Coffee Lounge on 33rd and A in Lincoln, Nebraska. All right, today's guest is Thaís Murias Jardim. I've known Thaís for almost 6 years now. We've been through so many crazy experiences. We have the deepest conversations. As you know, if you did listen to season 1, she inspired one of the episodes, which is dependence. Anyways, today I wanted her to be on the show, and I'm so glad that she said yes, because we are covering one of the most sensitive topics that we're living in today's society, unfortunately, is women in STEM, women in the fields of science and engineering and mathematics, and all of the crazy things that they have to experience in order to become doctors in that field. And then the journey continues even after that. So today she's going to open up about harassments and power dynamics between student and advisor, having to work twice as hard just because she's a woman. So I hope this one really opens your eyes on how crazy our system in this life is working, from institutions such as academia and then moving into the bigger world. So I really hope you enjoy this one. Thaís is awesome, and I'm really, really happy that she said yes. So make sure to like and subscribe. All right. Today, my guest is Thaís Murias Jardim. Thaís, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for agreeing to say, yes, I want to be part of You and Aya podcast. I know we're not all very comfortable being or talking or sharing about our stories, but I'm really, really happy that you said yes to this.
Yeah, I'm glad to be part of the podcast and being behind the scenes, behind the camera and also in front of it. It's a pleasure to be part of it.
Thank you, Thaís. Okay, so let's dive into the most important question. So everyone knows, we're curious, who is Thaís?
So I am originally from Brazil. So I'm an international student, currently an immigrant, and I'm currently getting my PhD in biological engineering, and I'm a scientist by heart and by training. So that's something that I love doing, and it was part of my identity for the longest time. And if you had asked me that question before, probably that would have been the first thing that I would say, because that's always like one of the big things about who I am. And I'm also someone that loves to learn, and I love to teach people the things that I know and share about the things that I know that I work on. And I'm also, I guess, considered a complicated person. I get in trouble a lot because I have my opinions, I have my values, and most of the time I share them, and and that gets me in trouble sometimes.
You do like to get in trouble. I think that's one of the things that I like most about you, is you're never afraid to voice your true opinion. If it's filtered or if it's not filtered, you really say what you want to say. And I think that's something brave that you do. And I learned from that as well from you. But so I've known you for almost 6 years now. And
yes,
we have talked about so many conversations. I mean, endless conversations. And you've even inspired a lot of my season 1 writing with the episode Dependent. But today, after thinking about it and after talking to you about it, I think we want to dive into academia. We want to dive into the behind the scenes of what makes a PhD candidate, but especially the harassment that students experience within those walls of institutions. And that's like something very heavy, very broad, but I feel like you are just so perfect for that because you're so interested in women's rights, advocating for just standing up for what's true, for what's real. You hate injustice. And I'm just really glad that you were willing to open up about this topic. So you want to tell us how you came to the States and kind of go from there?
Yeah, so a little bit of background story about how I got here. So I started liking science when I was in high school. So I did sort of a different high school, and instead of being 3 years, it was 4 years. And then I had a lot of really good teachers, and they were all either doctors or they were getting their doctorate degrees. And that's when I understood what like going to college meant and what getting all of those degrees meant. And I always had them to like someone to look up to. And then in Brazil, we have this program that is funded by the federal government where we get paid to do science early on. And it's more common when you are an undergrad student, but also in those type of high schools. So that's what I understood what science was. And I was always very curious, always like to learn new things. And that's when I understood like, oh, I can do this for a living. I can like figure things out for a living. And that was like the coolest thing, you know. I was like, oh my God, this is like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, you know. And so I had all of those people that were mentors to me, you know, and I had more than one, and that was really cool. So, and I loved plants. And then I decided that I want to do an undergrad in agronomy. So I became an agronomist. And when I was in my undergrad, I had a lot of experience with research. Since my second semester, I started working at Embrapa, and I worked there for 3.5 years. And I did a lot of research with greenhouse gas emissions in agriculture, and like figuring out how we can, how research can diminish the impact of agriculture emissions from agricultural areas. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so because I had those experiences and I wanted to be a better scientist, I started getting to know some professors here in the United States. And then I met a professor when he was in Brazil giving a talk, and I told him like, oh, I want to go to the United States and I want to do an internship with him. And he was all for it. So I came here, I did my 1-year internship. I had a great experience, you know, from a research perspective. It was hard because I moved here in 2020, 2 weeks before the pandemic. So I always wanted to come to learn how they do science here, but also to learn English. And then I spent most of my time here inside a house, not like talking to many people, and I didn't get to do all of the things that I wanted to do. But from that, I had the opportunity to get my master's. So I got a scholarship, and I did. I started doing my master's, and that's kind of how I came here. Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of around the time that we met, was during that master's program at Arkansas State University. So were you, So the experience moving from living your whole life in Brazil and having all these amazing mentors, from what I can hear, is you had mentors that were amazing. You had a lot of people that represented you, but then you're like, I have a dream to come to America. It happened. Unfortunately, you were quarantined for a bit, but then I want you to kind of walk me through the whole process of, because you've been here for 4 years now?
For 6 years.
6 years. So like the expectations of, oh my God, America. And now that you're like living in it, how has that perspective changed on now that you're like in a bigger lens and living that dream instead of being on the outside?
Yeah, I think that like when I was in my home country, I always knew that there was a lot of like things that were not right, in a sense, that, like, for example, because I'm in an agricultural field, and I'm in an engineering field, STEM field, there's always this imbalance. There's way more men than women, you know, but I was shielded from a lot of other things that also happen in the world, like in life. So there was a lot of things that it didn't happen to me. And a lot of times when it doesn't happen to you, you can't relate as much. When I moved here, I was a woman in STEM, but I was also an immigrant. And I didn't know how to speak English very well at the beginning. And there was a lot of things, like it's like the whole immigration system, it's very hard to navigate. And my family didn't have a lot of money, so my parents never went to college. And so all of those things, all of that path that it was my path. I didn't have anyone before me that had done those things. And the further along I was in my journey, it was more isolating, because although I was here and I had great mentors, most of them didn't go through the stuff that I did. So I didn't have, like, they were there with me, you know, and they helped me as much as they could, but they didn't have the experiences that I had. So they couldn't like fully help me or fully understand what I was going through. So it was kind of hard. And the more I got to like stay here, and like the education system, it's different from Brazil. All of those things I had to learn on my own almost. And so it was kind of hard, and you know, but I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've been kind of like with you along those journeys. I mean, with every step almost. Of course, at that point, I didn't know the things that a person can go through, and in that, like the STEM, if you want to like open your shirt, what does it say? STEMinist.
Yeah.
What is the definition of STEM? Women in STEM?
Yeah, so I think that this is like a movement that, because there's a really imbalance, like STEM, it's science, technology, you know, maths, and engineering. So there is way more men in those fields than women, you know, and there is a lot of research that shows that in many cases, there is a lot of girls graduating in those fields, but further along you go in your career, you know, even like once you finish all of your degrees and you start as a professor or whatever job it is, less women, you see less and less women, you know, and then that's how it is in most STEM fields, you know. And so it's basically a movement that wants to make sure that women are in all of those career stages, you know, and there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. A lot of work has already been done, but we see that, well, like we can see that most of professors in my current program, they're not women, you know, most of them, they're like white women, the ones that are there. So we don't have that representation as much, even though I have a lot of women students, like classmates. We don't see ourselves in those positions. And that's not very inspiring, because it's like we can't see ourselves in those places,
Yeah.
you know.
So, okay, so in Brazil, you had that representation, you had challenges behind the scenes, like every other person, but on a professional level, it was kind of more like, okay, it's attainable. I see that representation. You had an amazing woman advisor, I think Valkyria, I met her. Yeah. But then now you come here, and as you like highlighted, you're an immigrant now, you're a student, and that representation is kind of like no longer there. So the reason I asked you about STEMism, or like the word STEM and what it stands for, is because earlier you were saying that even though you had those good mentors, you still, like, they couldn't fully relate to you and to your personal experiences. And it's funny that you say that, because I'm also a woman, and I feel like it took me a long time to even understand your experience, even though I'm a woman and I'm also an immigrant. So like, I want to like kind of open the light on something that's like, because I mean, I went to college, but my field was more communication, I had to do research and whatnot, but it wasn't like the STEM, like those mathematics and science and engineering where you just kind of click. It's like, that's a man's job. So it's funny because like it took me a while for me to understand like, why is she struggling so much with that, you know? But now I understand now deeper, the more I got to know you, the more books I read with you, the more movies we watch about that kind of stuff. And that's really what I want to focus on, even though I am a woman and I did go to college and I am an immigrant. There's still that gap that it's like, okay, how can we kind of open that light? Do you want to walk me through your most recent experience on how is it being a woman in the STEM field dominated by all white, older male figures, maybe a bunch of other white women? How does, like, walk me through those challenges and experiences that you've went through?
Yeah, so I think that my graduate programs, like my master's and now my PhD, and I'm towards the end of my PhD program. So I would say that a lot of the experience that I gained was also like scientific experience, but was a lot about how the system works and how we need to stand up for ourselves if you want to stay in this field. You know, if I say that I want to be a scientist, but I already am a scientist. But if I want to be a professor, if I want to like continue working with this stuff, you really have to stand up for yourself, you know? So I would say, again, like I had an amazing mentor during my undergrad, amazing mentor during my master's. I struggled a lot with with immigration, even though I was here legally. Like there was a lot of things that I had to navigate, and because it was during the pandemic, that has like no one had experience because they never had a pandemic like this, like recently, you know. So no one knew how to help me, and you know, and that was hard because you have to go to school, you have to learn the language. I had to do all of those things, and on top of that, I had all the immigration that I didn't know if I would be able to even stay in the country and finish my degree, you know. So when I finished my master's, and then also during that time, I lost my grandmother. That was like one of the main person like in my life that always supported me, and like she was one of the, like she is like one of the most powerful women, and she was always a role model, and she's still a role model to me, you know. And being here, spending the last couple of years of her life in me being here, I felt very selfish because I wished I had spent that time with her, but instead I was here, you know. And I know that she was very proud of me. But anyway, so when I started my PhD, I was struggling with all of those things. And on top of that, I moved from an agricultural department that's very male dominated, but I moved into an engineering department that is even more male dominated somehow, at least in the university that I'm currently getting my PhD. So that was a lot of things that were expected from me, and it was a lot of pressure. I did not have a good advisor. I did not have a good mentor. So it was a very isolating experience for me at the beginning, Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, yesterday it so happens that we watched the movie, what is it called? I Am a Scientist?
Picture a Scientist.
Picture a Scientist.
Yeah.
And in that they mentioned I guess sexual harassment was there was a diagram, there was the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg were the main sexual harassment, you get physically abused, touched, whatever, the main three ones. I can't think of the other two. But then the other huge iceberg underneath the surface, it's not necessarily sexual harassment, but it's all kind of harassment. There's the list is endless. And every time they would pinpoint one, I would just kind of look at you and I was like, I mean, this is kind of what happened to you.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable sharing that harassment experience, how it started, how long did it take?
Yeah.
And
it was a lot of microaggressions, and it's so basically I started working with this professor, and I was very interested in the stuff that he worked with. And also I was interested in the university because supposedly it's a really good university and they are very well known for the kind of research that they do. And this professor is also an immigrant, so I thought there would be a connection in that sense as well, So I started working on a project that wasn't it was a project that was already happening, and a lot of people left their jobs, and then there was just a bunch of data that I was supposed to analyze. And it's at first it seems like it's a really good idea, oh, we have all this data, it's all collected, you don't have to do all the field work and all of those things, so we just have to analyze it, but there is a lot of challenge that come with, because when you don't collect the data, you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know anything related to it, and all of the people that knew, they were gone. And so I had a lot of issues getting the data, getting the information that I needed, and that delayed a lot of things. And the other thing also, I had a degree in agronomy, and in Brazil it's considered an engineering degree, but in the United States it's not. So I had to take a lot of undergrad classes my first year and a half of my PhD. So I had to do my research, I had to take my grad level courses and undergrad level courses. So it was a lot of things on top of everything else. So it's things kept piling up, So, and then I had this advisor that was never really present. We used to have meetings, but he was never really there, and was always a lot of things, small things would happen, and when you're oh, it's fine, let's just brush it off and move on, So this person started pressuring me to publish the papers, and I remember we had a meeting at the beginning of October, and then 2 weeks later, to decide the paper that I was going to write, and then 2 weeks later he told me that I had to hurry up with that paper because it needed to be submitted by the end of the year, which
By
was
December,
2
2
months,
months.
you know. And I was like, I'm a PhD student. I'm taking deficiency courses. I'm taking all of of those classes, you know. I'm with all of this data. And like, I don't know if I can do that, you know, like I don't know if I can publish a paper or submit a paper in 2 months. It's like,
Unrealistic.
It's a lot. Yeah, like it wasn't very realistic to me. And every time I would talk to him, there was always like this thing like, oh, if you just work harder, you can do it. If you just like focus on this, you can do it. And the other reason I started having a lot of issues too is a lot of his, the way that he operates was, you have to do this to publish a paper. But I learned how to do science in a different way. I was like, we have a problem, we have something that we want to figure out. You figure out that thing, and then you write a paper as a consequence of that. You know, I'm not used to doing things because I need to write a paper. I'm used to doing things because I want to find an answer. So that was a lot of like, oh, no, let's not do this way because we need to present this data this way for the paper, you know. So I couldn't see the reasoning behind what I was doing other than just writing a paper. And so I started like questioning a lot of things, like this does not seem right. And I couldn't just like, I'm not, and that's when I say that I get in trouble. I can't just do something because someone tells me to do. I have to understand why I have to do that. And then things started piling up, and he would always question everything that I did. It did not matter what I was doing. Did not matter if it was good, if it wasn't good. It would always be an issue, you know. It got to a point where, because I was always like a really good student, really good, never had any issues with my grades. I always had perfect grades. And one time he told me that the fact that I have a really good GPA was a problem, because that meant I was not spending enough time reading papers and writing papers. I was spending too much time focusing on classes. So I started to realize like there's no winning, like it is what it is. And going back to who I am, I attached like who I was to what I did. And then once I started, like when someone started telling me that I suck at what I do, and I was trained my whole life to do that, I was like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do now? I'm like not good at this, you know. I always did this. This was my dream. Like, what am I gonna do? Like I'm not gonna be able to do this. And then I had to kind of pivot and was like, okay, like I can't, my whole personality can't be what I do, you know. I have like to change how I see things. And so yeah, and then I saw the problem was very clear to me, that there was a problem with that professor. I looked for help. I was very fortunate that I found really good professors that took my side almost, and they helped me, and things got like pretty bad before they started getting better, you know. And so I'm on my 4th year of my PhD program, and I would say that the first 3 years it was hell, and I wanted to quit so many times, but I didn't have the option to quit because I am an international student. My visa is attached to my my scholarship, you know, like if I don't have that scholarship, I can't stay here. And then that scholarship is attached to that professor. So I had to deal with that situation, because like my parents can't afford paying for school for me, you know, and I can't get a job and like off campus and pay for my school. So I felt like, okay, like I don't have an option. I have to stay living through this, and then I figure out what I do. But then I realized, I was like, no, like I need to talk to someone else and do something about it. And that's what I did.
Yeah. That's a very brave move. So it makes me think about, I took a women's in rhetoric class last semester, and we talked about the power of voice, meaning every kind of like step a woman takes is powerful. Even silence. Apparently, like one of the rhetorics was like, if women are silent, it's because they're waiting for something to reveal. But like the majority of times when something happens to us, we kind of like retrieve, we protect, we don't talk about it until we're ready. So there's like a theme of like, being like harassed and whatnot. We don't immediately speak up, right? But for you, it was the opposite. It was speaking up almost immediately. Maybe you were silent for a bit, but you came to a point where like, this is not right. This is like, no, like something needs to be done. So what was it for you? What made you want to speak up instead of waiting for years to voice it?
So I started doubting myself a lot because, and that thing, and I think a lot of people do that. You are going through that situation and you think that things are gonna get better, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna keep working, I'm gonna work harder, it's gonna be fine. And it was a very difficult situation because it was like sometimes I would have meetings with this professor and he would be fine, and then there was other times there was about like he was in a bad mood and it would be awful. Like it would be so many, like he would say so many things to me, and he would say that I'm being passive aggressive, that I'm being defensive, that I'm bad at communication, all of those things. And and I was just like stating my opinion about things. So it's like there's always that reaction, like I would say something and that person would react back instead of like understand like what was going on. Because, like that's me communicating like I'm not happy about this situation. We need to do something about it. So that was not good. But then other times things would be fine. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I would doubt myself. Maybe it's not that bad. And I was like, again, like I questioned myself a lot. I was like, maybe I'm not good at this. I thought I was good at it. Maybe I'm not. And I was like, no, wait, like I am really good at this.
You are.
I always had really like good experiences. I was always really good at what I did. Like I can't let this person that barely knows me, that in my opinion many times did not know what he was talking about or doing, because I have all of these experiences in my life, and I know how things are done, and I know that people navigate things differently, but there's a lot of things in science that they need to be done in a way, because that's how you hold standards in things that you do, and we would just skip a lot of those things many times. And so I was, and I of course I did a lot of therapy. I talked to you a lot about things. You poor thing had to listen to me, my sister, and everyone would like every time I would share those things, people would like say like, oh yeah, like that's messed up, like I don't think that's right, So I started seeing all of that. And then once I started speaking up, things started getting worse and worse. And it got to a point I'm like, man, this is like not right at all. Like this person is like, that's not cool. Like that's not how we should be treating human beings, regardless if we are from here, regardless if we are like immigrants, if you're students, if you're a professor. Like that's just how you shouldn't be treating humans like that, And so I struggled a lot with my mental health, and that was another thing. Like, okay, I really need to get out of the situation, because I don't know if I can keep doing that. Like I can't, like, So that was one of the ways.
That was. Yeah, so you had therapy, you had people you trusted to kind of voice things, you went out of your way to like put it out to like see what is, am I crazy? Like when you're dealing with something like that, you start questioning your worth, your identity. Am I able to do this? And it looks like you wanted to quit many times. I remember how many times you wanted to quit. And I would always tell you, like, look at the bigger picture. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be the person that to be that person for others, the person that no one could be there for you. What do you think for you, like, even though, yes, you had like the visa issues or, whatever, what was something more like core to you that made you keep going instead of just calling it quits and leaving?
Well, it was a number of things. Of course, like being someone that has gone through that experience and being able to help other people was one of the things. And I think that's a lot what drives me now. But at the time, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was like, that was, and like, for example, you've told me that many times, and that was very helpful. But I don't think that alone was what helped me. I think first was, I always wanted to do that. My family, they worked very hard for me to be here, and I worked hard to be here too, but I know that my family made a lot of sacrifices. And, like I didn't want to let them down. Like I wanted to do that, and like I want to be strong and keep doing what I wanted to do, because I put so much effort in doing that. And I also felt like I didn't have the option, because like I invested so many years, like I've been here for 6 years and a half. And like if I quit today and go back to Brazil, like I would almost have to start over, because I built a lot of my career here, like a lot of my connections are here, and a lot of the research that I do is related to what it's been done in the United States. So it would be like almost like a restart, and like other personal reasons too. Like I wanted to stay here, So that was one of the things also that made me not quit, and a lot of therapy.
Thank God for therapy.
Thank God for my
and
therapist.
But so earlier you said that when women in STEM go into these fields at the beginning, there's a lot of bachelor's and master's declines, and then PhD goes. So it goes from like almost 50% to like 30%, because people quit half of the way. And almost always those incidents is because of those pushback. You're a woman of color. You as a scientist, you want to figure things out. You want to help people. You want to publish things eventually once you know the reason. But instead of doing that, you're having to deal with this. You're having to deal with a bad advisor. You're having to deal with finding another advisor. So do you want to walk us through also the process of advisor switching? How much of hell that was, and how long did it take, and anything in between?
So it was, I was very fortunate because I found a professor that had funding. That's one of the hard things these days. It's just funding in general. It's harder to get. So I found a professor that really listened to me. And the same way that, like, I told my therapist, my sisters, some friends, I was like, okay, like, this is happening to me. And he was like, man, that's messed up. Like, that doesn't seem right, So, like, he really listened, and he helped me a lot. And I don't know if I would have been able to get out of the situation if I didn't have that person to stand up for me also. And so I started, again, this professor that I had issues with, we would talk about certain things, and later on in another meeting, he would tell me different things about, like, we talked about something, and then later on he's like, no, I never told you that, you know. So like he started, I guess it's a popular word these days, like he started gaslighting me a lot. So I started keeping track of everything that we would talk. So like every single meeting, yes, I would transcribe everything, and I would keep track of everything that that person was telling me. And then it got to a point that he told me, if you do not publish a paper, I was on my second year. Well, I was 1.5 years into my programs. Like, if you don't publish a paper by the end of this year, the end of my second year, I'm not going to renew your contract. I was like, okay, like, I really need to do something about it. And that's when I was like, okay, like, I don't have an option now. Like, either I have to write this paper, that the situation as it is, I don't know if I can do that. Because I would dread talking to him. I would dread the work that I was doing. Everything was like very dreadful. So I went to talk to this other professor that is my current advisor, and he was the one that, like, he helped me. He said, yes, if things don't work out, if he cancels, he doesn't renew your contract, you can work with me and whatnot. And this, the professor found out that I talked to this other professor. And so he got really mad, and that, like, things just went south with that. And he said that I could find another advisor if I wanted to. And I already had another advisor, you know, like, I already found the other professor. He was not very nice about it. And at the time I was taking a class with him. It was a seminar class. So, and seminar classes are very, like, it's about writing, you know, it's not supposed to be, like, extremely difficult, you know, not rocket science. And I knew that I had a problem, an issue with that professor. So I went into the department, I talked to the chair, and I told them, like, okay, like, I'm having those issues. I am a really good student. Here it's all of my, like, background information, like all of my grades, my transcript. This is what's happening. I just want you guys to be aware that I might have some issues, because I already knew that he was that way, you know. So I started keeping track of everything that I was doing in class. And I could choose doing, like, a grade, like a letter, or I could do pass or fail. So, and because it was a writing class and he was the instructor and also my advisor, I depended on him to get feedback on the stuff that I was writing, because we were supposed to work with our advisors. So he, like, that was a huge power imbalance in that situation. So at the same time, I was changing advisors, and that was supposed to be something easy, you know, but because of that whole thing, like the classes and the class that I was taking with him and the papers, the research that I was working on with him, things just kept dragging and dragging. And it ended up that I failed that class, and was the first class that I ever failed in my whole life.
You mean he failed you?
And yeah, and then I knew that what he did was not right, and I had everything documented. So I put together an 80-page grade appeal, and I went to the department head. And then we escalated the situation all the way to the graduate council for the university. So they reviewed all my material, and they granted me the appeal. So I got my grade back. And that professor, he was not happy about it. So he appealed my appeal.
He appealed your appeal.
Yeah, and then he lost it. So after 10 months, it was a 10 months long process. I finally got my passing grade back. So technically I never failed because I got my grade back.
But he failed you. You can say
well,
it. Like
he did fail me, and that's exactly what the graduate council for the university told. Like I have a letter, and it's like that was one of my small victories, you know. And maybe it's not small to me. Like was a big victory because I spent 10 months in that. Like it was like 1/4 of my PhD almost doing that process, and like I could so the whole change of advisor on my year 2, and then this whole grade appeal on year 3 of my PhD, and then on year 3, that's when I officially changed the advisor. I had to start over my PhD project, so I had to start on a brand new research, and I'm so glad I did because that research resonated so much more with who I am, with my values, and I had so much freedom to do what was like what I wanted to do. Like I could do science, you know. So that whole process, like since I started my PhD all the way to the winning the grade appeal and then changing, like the full change of advisor process, it was like 3 years. And then I feel like this year has been so good to me because in that sense, because I can finally like I got past all of that, you know, and then I can focus on my research on my last year.
Wow.
You know, so yeah.
I want to say, ain't nobody got time for that shit. Like, seriously, I mean, you're a PhD student. You're trying to like get all of these classes in. You wanna have good mentorship. You wanna become better in terms of whatever a PhD program consists of, and instead you had to deal with someone that minimized you, made you doubt yourself, did not take your credential because you're probably a woman, like so many things, told you I'm not gonna renew you. Technically he's like threatening you. He's like, you can find an advisor, you find one, and he's like, nah, that's not what I said. So it's just like a battle of 3 years of you, like, and I remember when we moved, there was like a stack of paper this big of like printed emails and all of that. You were like trying to create a folder to like appeal something. Yeah. Instead of having to just be a woman in STEM.
Yeah. It's and you have similar experiences that I do. Like we have to navigate those situations, and like we could be spending so much time like doing things that are like good for us in a sense that we could be doing so much more at work, you know, like I could be publishing so many more papers or reading more papers or like, I don't know, whatever it is that we need to do, you know, at work. But we have to spend all this time doing those things, you know, like sometimes I would get emails from him and it would just crush me like for the entire day, you know, like there was times that it would be hard to get out of bed because I didn't want to have to deal with that stuff. Like if I had a meeting scheduled with him, I would be like crushed for the rest of the day because it was just really hard. Like it's so draining. All of those situations, you have to like really like, even like he would question all, like even the small things that I would say. Like I remember there was one time that we kept going back and forth because I said something and I included the word ideally. And it's like, what do you mean by ideally? I was like, well, ideally we have to do this. Like, no, but like, what does that mean? And then we kept going. I was like, why am I explaining myself about this? It's like, I don't know. Like, it's not even my first, like English is not my first language. I don't know exactly what that means. This is what I mean. And then he was like, well, but you said this. Why did you say this? So like, oh my God, you know? So like all of those things, they're like really time sucks. And you see all of those other grad students, they're accomplishing so much. You know, like, oh, they have like you see them like, oh my God, they're so great at doing all of those things. How do they have time? Like, how can they do all of those things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, because they don't have to do
They don't have to deal with
this stuff that I'm doing, you know. They don't have to write a book about how you shouldn't have failed that class. You know, they don't have to do that. They don't have to figure out who is the dean for this and that, because you need to send this stuff to the dean. And then you have a meeting with the dean, and then you have to talk about every single experience, like traumatic experience, and all of the microaggressions you went through for the past 3 years to explain why this is wrong, you know. And then it's just like a lot of time and energy that we could be making a lot of progress on the stuff that we, like, I signed up to do science, you know. I signed up to be a doctorate, like, a student, and I have to do all of this.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to experience all of that. But so there was a power dynamic, a student versus advisor. There was, I'm sure that you had to work twice as hard to prove your worth because you're a woman. So with all of that, given like the experience, it's annoying and unfortunate, and it sucks because I bet you there's like so many millions of other girls in STEM that are experiencing this as we speak in real time right now. What did you take from a positive outlook after everything that's happened? What is something that you just take and you're kind of actually thankful for this experience?
I think this experience motivates me a lot more than before. Because before, I didn't understand how important, like, I knew that it was important to have a good mentor and to have someone that looks like you in the classroom. Mm-hmm. But I knew that, but it's different when you go through those things and you are looking for that person, you know. And it was very important to have people that help me along the ways, you know. And I know that that's not everyone has that opportunity. I was very fortunate to have those people in my life, and now I know how important it is because I didn't have I didn't have a good mentor at the beginning of my PhD program. Didn't have a good advisor, and that was like a lot, you know. It's really hard to be able to finish, you know. And so, in another thing, like you were mentioning, like as we go like undergrad to master's to PhD, like the further you go along, you know, in academia, we see that not a lot of women are there because a lot of them, like the other day I was talking to another student, and she was just saying how like her advisor is not great either. And then I asked, like, oh, well, like, what do you want to do after? It's like, well, I want to find a job in the industry. And I was like, well, but did you want to stay in academia? And she said that she didn't really want to. Maybe if she had a good advisor, she would have stayed, you know, but she doesn't want to be in that environment anymore. And that's a lot what I question myself as well, because I know that once I graduate and I become a professor or like a full-time scientist or whatever it is, it's not going to be easy, you know, because we can see like there are a lot of young professors, female professors, that they still go through that same thing, you know. But it is very important to be there for the next person, you know, like for the people that are coming after you, and hopefully they are not gonna go through the same situation that I did, or maybe if they do, I hope I'm able to help them and at least like share my experiences and tell them that that's not right, and that they can overcome, and if that's really what they want to do, they should pursue, you know. And it's hard. It's not like something easy to fix because it's just how the system is, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you just said it. It's a very big systematic issue in those institutions. And really, if you kind of expand it outwards, it's not just that institution of academia. It's like throughout our lives, it's like that dominance of, male, white male, like kind of dominating all of these. And we're kind of coming in wanting to be part of that. And we're just like excluded because we're women of color, etc., blah, blah, blah. And then you have to deal, like that hinders so many things for your success. But what would you say to those women in STEM that want to like pursue those degrees? What is one advice you can give them to encourage them to kind of like do it? I don't know. What is this advice that you can give them based on everything that you just told me?
Yeah, I think that quitting, honestly, is the easy way out of it. But if we quit, we're not going to be able to change how things are done. And that's a lot what motivates me today is like, I hope that in the future there is going to be enough of us. And that doesn't mean just women, like, as I mentioned, my current advisor, he's a man and he stood up for me, so it doesn't mean that it has to be only women, but we have to have people that want to make things different in academia. And if you are a student and you got that far along in your career, like you've been in school forever and you're smart and you're capable of it. Like, I don't think we should question that. Everyone that has the opportunity and that see why education is important, they have the capability of doing that. But the system it pushes us out, and it's tiring. Like, it's hard to stay and fight all the time, And honestly, like, some fights are worth fighting. And I think that if people are willing to fight, it's very important that they stay and they fight, and yeah, and representation matters. Like, if you are from a marginalized group, that you see that not a lot of people that look like you get that far along, like, you can be that person for the people coming after you,
Yeah. So you can't really fight the system. Well, you can fight it, but it's like still going to be there, unfortunately. So what you can be is fight that battle, find a good support system, stand up for yourself, voice it, and then become that representation for others, because be the change you wish to see in the world.
Definitely.
Okay, so this has been a very awesome conversation. I'm actually really glad you said yes to this, because I wanted to give you a platform to voice this issue that has been like pressing on you for a while. And I really think a lot of students, especially women, are going to relate to this. So I want to thank you a lot for wanting to share your story. Before we wrap up, is there a comment or a question you want us to ponder on?
So let's see. Man, I knew that was coming and I did not prepare for that. No, I'm joking.
Take your time.
But yeah, I think that it's important for us to, regardless of who we are or what is the lens that we see life through or whatever it is, like, I think it's important for people to have more empathy, because, and like, sometimes because we can't relate, we don't care about other people's problems, because it's just like, well, it's not my problem, it's not affecting me, so it's like, that's not cool, but it's fine,
Yeah.
So I think that if people had more empathy, things would be so much different these days, like, you don't have to be mean to someone just because you are more powerful or because you have the upper hand. So it's just I do believe that just being nice to people, and that's kind of how I've been like trying to be more mindful about how I interact with people, even if I don't agree with them. It's like, just be open and try to see where people are coming from, and just try to be don't be an asshole to people.
Okay.
Yeah,
you heard it. Do not be an asshole is Thaís' last words. But yeah, it's be kind, be empathetic, sympathetic, and just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you have to be mean or any of that. So don't be an asshole. And why are we not empathetic anymore? That's the question of the day. But Thaís, thank you so much. It has been awesome having this conversation. To be continued. This podcast is produced by Main Floor Media. Created, executive produced, and hosted by Aya Karuni. Creative producer Hank Ball. Co-produced Thaís Murias Jardim. Set designer and production assistant Frida Thailander. Hairstyling for me, Anastasia Jennings. Plants and floral elements provided by Grateful Growers and Carbon Coffee Lounge. Additional support provided by Dr. Ron Braille, Jim Walker, Haifa Sleiman, and Widad Sleiman. With gratitude to our title sponsor, Carbon Coffee Lounge. Thank you so much for watching. Next episode of You and Aya is with Mike Murphy, July 8th. They say it's right, so stay tuned. We're going to be discussing grief and loss. It's going to be a very sentimental episode. I can already feel it. I'm gonna break into tears. Bring a tissue paper, maybe a whole box or a bag of chips. I don't know, whatever makes you comfortable. All right, July 8th. Let's do it. To be continued.